Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the first episode of the new season of Live with Marketers. I'm Sean Callahan. I'm a senior manager of content marketing at LinkedIn. I know my title. And our show today is how to maximize your blog content. I've got two guys who can talk very knowledgeably about that subject. I've got Andy Crestodina here and Michael Brenner, and I'll let them introduce themselves in a couple minutes. But first, we want to go through some housekeeping before we get started on this. So please note that the audio portion is coming through your computer speakers. You don't have to dial in. And I hope I'm not doing this right now, so I hope you can hear me. And so you can ask questions. There'll be Q&A a little bit later in the hour with Michael and Andy. And you can put those questions into the Q&A module, and we'll get your questions and we'll pose them to Michael and Andy. And we'll share the slides from this. Michael and Andy have some presentations they're going to do, very quick ones. We'll share those slides after we're done here, and we'll email them to you after the event. So again, let's get started here. I'm Sean Callahan. At LinkedIn, what I do here is edit some blogs. I edit our LinkedIn Marketing Solutions blog and our LinkedIn Sales Solutions blog, and I'm going to pass along some of the stuff I've learned over the past 3 or 4 years doing that. Marketers in this age have so many things to concern themselves with. There's AR, there's AI, there's VR, but the blog still remains a very central part of getting your message out. My friend and colleague, Jason Miller, he's got a great quote about the blog. He says, it's the rug that ties the social media room together. And of course, that's he's referencing the dude from The Big Lebowski. But the point is that the blog really ties your whole content marketing strategy together. And I think you'll see that after we've talked here with Michael and Andy over the next hour or so. So I'll be sharing some of what I've learned. They'll be sharing some of what they've learned. But I'm going to let them introduce themselves now before we get really rolling into the content. So Andy, introduce yourself to the crowd here.
My name is Andy Crestodina, and I'm the co-founder of a company called Orbit Media Studios. Orbit's a web design company in Chicago, where you and I both live like
now two blocks.
Yeah, two blocks apart. We're neighbors in Chicago. There's 38 of us. We've been around since 2001. So this is 17 or so years of SEO and analytics work I've done. And I've been blogging and publishing and doing social media and email marketing and content strategy since around 2007. So it's about 10 years in the content world. If anyone's ever heard of me, it would probably be as the writer on orbitmedia.com or as a presenter at an event where this guy probably is as well. So yeah, web design company in Chicago.
All right. Thanks, Andy.
Yeah.
Michael, introduce
Sean,
yourself.
Thanks to you and LinkedIn for having me. You're two of my favorite marketers, so it's a real pleasure for me to be here. Again, Michael Brenner. My name is Michael Brenner. I'm CEO of Marketing Insider Group, co-author of the book called The Content Formula. And I get to speak at conferences, and as Andy said, I get to see Sean and you guys all over the place. Real privilege for me to do that. Marketing Insider Group, basically we're a content marketing strategy consulting company. It's just me, so most days I like my boss. Not all the time, but most days. But I help brands create content that connects with their audience, help executives create presentations and sales pitch decks that connect with their audience and help them increase sales as well. I think content and SEO are really the backbone and foundation of marketing today, and so I'm really excited to talk about those things today.
Okay, so thanks for introducing yourselves as business people. I want to ask a personal question. Andy, what's not on your LinkedIn profile?
I'm going to show, not just tell. Here, you ready? I wear red socks. I have worn red socks every day since I was 22 years old, so a couple of decades. All my socks are red. Someone asked me, I think I had like 20 pairs of red socks. I don't ask because I don't know, there's not a great story behind it. I suppose it is a personal branding thing. It's just random. But yeah, I'm a red sock wearing marketer, and you would never know that looking at my LinkedIn profile.
And you're not from Boston, or nothing to do with it?
Nothing to do with baseball at all.
Okay.
Red
Michael?
Sox, I just got that. Got it. That's pretty funny. That's awesome. I wish I had something as interesting as that to say, but there's my three best days ever are not on my LinkedIn profile. So of course my wife, who's probably not listening, but meeting her was the first major moment of my life, best day of my life. Meeting each of my 4 kids for the first time, and we have kids. I know you both do, and so you know how amazing that is. Besides those 2 great moments, the third most best day I ever had, it's not on my LinkedIn profile, is I got to meet Mark Hamill, Luke Skywalker, for you Star Wars nerds out there. So the story is I wrote an article for Content Marketing World where he was keynoting, and it was titled "WTF Does Mark Hamill Know About Content Marketing?" It was a question I think I was wondering, and I think many were wondering, and it was a series. I had done that for 2 or 3 years, kind of hoping that the talent, the famous person would mention me or something. They never did until Mark, and then he up on the stage mentioned the article I wrote 3 times, and I think I was standing next to you, Sean, when it happened. I was pretty excited, and then the Content Marketing Institute folks grabbed me and pulled me backstage, and I got to meet him. And again, he reiterated that he thought it was a well thought and well written article, and it made great points. And he first saw it, and he was kind of angry about it, but then he read it and thought it was pretty cool. So he was a great guy. I got a good picture with him, and it was a pretty cool moment for me.
The force was with you.
The force was with me for that.
Fantastic. All right. So, and you guys were asking me earlier what was not on my link. So I'll share. I used to be a newspaper reporter, and for a while for a small Chicago newspaper, I reviewed movies. That was part of my job. And so I would go downtown, and we'd go into this small little screening studio and watch the movies ahead of time before they came out, so you could review them the day that the movie was released. And Siskel and Ebert, Roger Ebert and Gene Siskel, were in the screening room most of the times that I went in there. And I never said a word to either of them, and they never said a word to me. So that's where the story ends. It's not on my LinkedIn profile.
You missed your chance.
Yes.
What percentage of the audience do you think knows who Siskel and Ebert is?
7 or 8%. Yeah. They used to review movies.
At the movies, yeah, it's a huge thing.
Let's see. We've got an agenda today. It's not going to be all about what's not on our LinkedIn profile. So Andy's got a survey that he does for annually surveying bloggers. We're going to talk a little bit about that and the findings. I think there's going to be some interesting information for everyone who's a blogger out there. Michael's going to talk about why HR is the new marketing and how that can impact your content. I'll talk about how we build a subscriber base on the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions blog. We'll have some questions, some just for fun questions, and audience Q&A. That's all coming up here. But first, we've got a poll question. We sort of want to take the temperature of the audience and see where you guys stand. So how often are you publishing on your company blog? You can answer in the poll module in the console. And while you guys are answering, we'll make a prediction about what we think this poll is gonna show. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, with this audience, I'm going to say that we're not at the daily, probably not daily, between daily and monthly. I'm going to say probably several times a week.
Okay.
In that range, maybe weekly, something like that, right around there.
Okay. Michael, what do you think?
Yeah, I think Eagles 27, Patriots 24.
Okay.
Oh wait, we're
right.
talking about blog. Oh, right. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, go Eagles.
Talking about less.
Sorry, I had to get that in.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think weekly. I think Andy's right. I think that most people are going to say weekly, and there we go. We've got some results.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Less than once a month, about 30%. Monthly, also around 30%. Weekly, about 30%. Daily is well at the bottom at about 6%. So I think that's right. Between weekly and daily is about how it goes. So Andy, you're up talking about your blogger survey, and
yeah, pretty good segue because so here's the concept. Every year we ask 1,000 plus bloggers. This year it was 1,300. 12 questions about how they do the job, and the original idea was to figure out how long it takes to write a blog post. And it's got to be at least 1,000 people to get to statistical significance because there's a lot of bloggers out there. So what we learned back in the day, this is like 2014, the first year we did this, that the average blog post took 2 hours and 24 minutes to write. Still feels around that range for a lot of people, but it's gone up every year. And so now we see that we're in the range now where people are spending, the average blog post in 2017 took 3 hours and 20 minutes to write. So people are putting a lot more time. You guys, we're all putting a lot of us putting more time into our content. So how does that break down? There's actually a huge variation in there. There's still people, 7%, who publish in less than an hour. We know them, I know them. But then there's more of us now who spend more than 6 hours on a typical blog post. That's like 12% of bloggers are spending 6+ hours on a typical piece of content. Pretty intense, right? That keeps going up. The job is getting harder. People are investing more in it.
I'm exhausted just hearing that
I know,
number.
makes me tired, yeah. It's like, but it's work, right?
Yeah.
And we'll talk about the impact on frequency. So where does that time go? One is length, and it's a common question. How long should my blog post be? There's no right answer, but the average length, according to the survey, if you average out each range, 1,142 words, which is up, right? Which is up. These numbers are way up. Some of these things are, 20, 30, 40%. The percentage of bloggers who are writing 2,000 plus words on a typical post, it's actually 8.5% of bloggers are writing 2,000 plus words on the average post. Like, these are deep pieces. They're putting a lot into it. So I'm going to go deeper here now, and you're going to see where else that time goes. Are people using editors? Yes, more people every year are using editors. It's like a story about professionalizing this practice, right? It's getting more serious,
Yep.
getting bigger investment.
And job security for Sean.
Job security, right? Guys like this. He's not available, or else he's a pro
That's
editor.
right.
He'd be great,
That's right.
but he's busy here at LinkedIn. 18.7% of people say now, yes, they have a formal editing process. That number has increased every year. What does a typical post include? Right? Blogs include other media. So what else is going into a blog post? The percentage of bloggers that now put multiple images into a post, that keeps going up. It's now 57, 58% of people putting multiple images, which is a best practice I often recommend, right? Don't just make a featured image. Give the reader something of visual interest at every scroll depth, right? Keep the scanner flowing through the page, right? Reduce the bounce rate by keeping it interesting and trying to slow them down by adding visual interest.
I'm surprised that video isn't higher or isn't growing faster. What's your sense of people using video in blog posts?
I would have expected that to go up too. Part of the reason I believe is that this is now a larger data set. I had about 1,000 before, now this is 1,300. So I think I had a few more of the hardcore bloggers in the early days of the survey.
Right.
To be honest, I think there's a little bit of, it's skewed slightly. But it's going up, right? People are upgrading the format. And
Right.
we all know video to be a very powerful, the most compelling format, tone of voice and body language. It works really well. And then checking analytics was the other thing. The percentage of people who always, every post, every time they publish, checking analytics is now up to 32%, right? That keeps increasing. So,
But still depressingly low.
you'd think it would be
Just
higher.
a third of us look
Yeah.
and see if it worked.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I get in the car every day. Sometimes I find out if I got to point B. Like, that's weird, right? Why wouldn't you always do that?
Right.
But so basic. So the story is more time, more effort is going into these, right? But we only have, I say sometimes, like X amount of calories we can burn on this project, right? This content thing. So where does that come out of? And the answer is in frequency. So when we look at the percentage of people who publish multiple times a week, it's going down. Multiple times a month, it's going up. Weekly stays about the same. So what you're finding is people are concluding that it makes more sense to publish bigger, better, but less often. That's kind of what the data suggests. And a lot of us have found that that's successful, right? If I put 20% more time into each thing, I might get 50% better results. It's just kind of a question of efficiency, right? Or if I 10x my content, I might get 100x the results. In my mind, the amount of effort that we spend on content is sort of a linear thing,
Right.
but the results from it are sort of a curve, like an exponential thing. So it's worth it to invest more time because it puts you a little bit farther over on that scale where you get a lot better results, right? We all know that a small percentage of everything gets the greater percentage of results. So the survey shows that, because the final question is, do you get strong results from your content? And we find that 30% of bloggers report, self-reporting, strong results from their blog. It's another one, right? Millions of blog posts published per day. I would hope that that number would be a little higher.
Why else would they do it?
Why else would we do it? Yeah. So here's how it breaks down. Here's how it correlates with each of the other questions. Long content, yes. Bloggers who publish 2,000 words per post, 56% of them are reporting strong results. It goes straight down the line, right? People who publish bigger and badder are more likely to say, yes, it's working for me. How about the editors? Bloggers who use editors or a formal editing process are 43% more likely to say, yes, I get strong results from my blog. There's the correlation, right? This is the, crunching the numbers here. What about checking analytics? Yes, 42%, a greater percentage than the 30% on average, who always check analytics are saying yes, they get strong results from their blog, right, from their content. And then finally, here's the question about investment of time, total time. Does spending more time make a difference? 49% of the bloggers who spend 6+ hours, right, on an individual piece of content are saying that yes, they get strong results from their content. So definite correlation between the R and the I in an ROI calculation, right? It's like, how much are we investing in this? The
right.
Higher cost, but maybe much higher benefit. That's sort of what we're finding.
Okay. Michael, what struck you about the report that Andy just shared there?
Yeah, I mean, I reacted. I mean, I think the biggest one is just that 32%, or I think it was 32%, only 32% are looking at the results after they've published something. And I can't do something without wondering, everything I do in life, I think I kind of look back and see, did it work or not work? To spend time on things it's one thing to see if it worked or didn't, and then you learn from it, but to not even check, I think, is just a real missed opportunity. So, the biggest insight for me is check and see what works. All you have to do is commit to looking at analytics, and hopefully you'll see the results.
Yeah, how else do you optimize? How do you know? I mean, one of the greatest tricks in all of content and in all of marketing is take your top performing X and turn it into Y. Take your top blog post from last year and make it a video, right? Take your top article and turn it into an infographic. It's like the simplest formula, right? But top performing on what? So I think we're going to talk more about that, about how results are measured and how our viewers are measuring their own performance.
Yeah, I think we'll dive. I think one of the most interesting aspects of this is the quality versus quantity sort of question that every blogger, company that's blogging has to ask themselves. And we'll dive into that in a little bit here. In the meantime, we've got another poll question for the audience, and just what Michael was talking about there, marveling at the lack of use of analytics. How do you measure your blog success? So you guys can answer this in the module, the poll module on the console. So while you're doing that, we're going to make a prediction here again, not about the Super Bowl, but about this poll. Like, how do you think most people are measuring success?
Well, there are a lot of ways to answer that. There's top line, top of funnel, traffic and brand awareness. There's bottom of funnel, conversion or revenue or demand generated. There's lots of engagement metrics in between. I think some of the less meaningful metrics are the most visible, like social shares.
Right.
I think some of the most valuable and important bottom of the funnel are the most difficult to measure. Sales qualified leads, things like this, like conversions. But I think we'll probably, I hope to see a lot of people saying the subscribers, because you and I are believers, and you're going to talk more about the LinkedIn list growth. That is an obsession for every hardcore content marketer I know, is email subscribers.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, my whole book, The Content Formula, is basically about the trick to ROIs, measuring subscribers. Revenue is really the key, but revenue often takes longer in a B2B sales cycle.
Right.
Subscribers, you publish and it generated more than you usually get, or it didn't. And that's the optimization. So I think we're going to see shares and likes, and there it is. Yeah. But subscribers are the key, folks.
Engagement is the leader there, and traffic. But yeah, those are definitely KPIs, but they're not the critical one. I think more people should be measuring subscriptions and revenue. Yeah. Although revenue is, as you said, more difficult to measure, but subscriptions, I mean, it's out there. Like, you see it on a daily basis, whether your content's working or not. Right. And
yeah, I mean, that kind of indicates what I was suggesting. The easier things to measure are the ones that people are paying more close attention to. I would have hoped to see a greater percentage of people who are focused on the list growth and subscribers. I think the nature of the poll is you can just choose one, right?
Yes.
So I think a lot of us are using more than one. So there's probably people commenting right now like, no, wait, I do. I do that too.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. That's a fair point. Yeah. I think everybody's measuring engagement, shares, likes at some level.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So next up is Michael's going to talk a little bit about the HR as the new marketing.
HR is the new marketing, which I think the first time I said that in public, I saw like marketers like, sort of shrink down in their chairs. And I actually thought to myself, I'm never going to say that again, because what I'm not saying is that HR is going to start doing marketing. And we'll talk about that in a second. But first, I actually wanted to kind of segue from Andy's data, knowing he was going to present. And I participated in the survey, and I think it's great every year. And this quality versus quantity question makes me crazy. And I get really sort of worked up about it. I believe it's a false choice. So I want you to imagine out there that you could increase your quantity, but keep quality the same or even increasing. So wouldn't that be the best of both worlds, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think it's a false choice. We can increase quantity and keep quality the same or increasing. So I reached out to my friend Steve Rayson, who's the co-founder and CEO at BuzzSumo, which tracks the number of shares for every piece of content that's published on the web. And what happened was Steve published a report that showed that Moz.com had basically doubled the number of articles that they published. And in the course of that, their average shares per article dropped by half. So doubled their articles, half the number of shares per article. And I thought that was a little bit misleading. So I pressed him a little bit, and I asked him for data for my own site. And so you can see here in the blue bars, it's the number of pieces of content I published. I've moved from once or twice a week to a few times a week, trying to get to every day or multiple times a day. And as you can see there, as I increased volume, my average shares dropped, which is exactly what Steve's other research was showing. What I think is misleading is it doesn't show total shares. And so what you see here is the same volume of articles published from my site, marketinginsidergroup.com, but you see the total shares is completely correlating to the number of articles published. What I'm trying to say here is if you can maintain quality, and I went from 750 words to 1,100 words, kind of on your average, over the course of these 2 years, I tested different volumes and saw my total number of shares increase. So if you can maintain quality and publish quality stuff and increase the volume a little bit, you're going to see an increased level of engagement. It's kind of the point. I don't know if you want to react to that.
Yeah, I want to ask, because the previous slide kind of begs the question, like, why would doubling frequency reduce average shares per post?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I pondered that a lot. And I think the answer is that everyone has an audience that has a finite amount of shareability, time and effort that they're going to give to Sean or you, Andy, publishing an article. So when you publish an article, I'm likely to share it. When you publish two, I'm not as likely to share it twice. And I think that's why we see average shares come down. But at the same time, I think when we publish more, we can reach larger audiences and tap into additional incremental sharers, if that's a word.
That makes sense to me as a reader. I mean, if everyone that I read suddenly published twice as much, I certainly wouldn't be sharing twice as much.
Right.
Yeah, there's kind of a finite amount of brain space or generosity, or they only need X amount to fill their social streams.
That's it.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're talking about volume, and I do consult with companies all the time, and I tell them that frequency will drive results if your quality hits at least a minimum baseline of quality. How do you fill that funnel? And this is how, trying to answer that question is how I came to this sort of realization. And Sean, I remember back in Chicago at an event 2 years ago, I think I uttered the words for the first time, and that's how we ended up writing an article for LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, HR is the new marketing. So here's the sort of the justification for that. As consumers, we feel over-marketed too. And here's a survey by Nielsen that shows that 73% of us that buy from products from brands wouldn't care if those brands disappeared completely. This isn't brands overall, it's products that we use, which is pretty interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Like Starbucks, Netflix, and Amazon, I'd be upset if those went away, but outside of those three, I don't know what detergent I'm using.
LinkedIn,
of course, LinkedIn. But these are engaging platforms we use every day. Outside of that, I don't think we care as much. And part of it is because we live in this overmarketed world. So consumers are not happy. We are not happy as consumers. What about us as employees? So this is Gallup research. They show this every year that less than a third of us are engaged with our employers, with our work. Just over half of us are actually disengaged. And then the most alarming stat of all, 17% of us are actively disengaged. What does that mean? It means we're stealing pens, we are calling in sick when we're not really sick, or we're actively attempting to undermine the objectives of our boss in our company. That's a scary thought, right? 17% of us are feeling that way. So employees are not really engaged. Now, what about CEOs and executives? 4Nays Group did a survey of CEOs and asked them, how do you feel about CMOs and CIOs and COOs and CFOs and all the C-level executives on their team? And they were pretty happy with COOs and CIOs and CFOs. About 20% of them were unsatisfied with their performance. 80% were unsatisfied with CMOs. Why do you think that is? It's crazy, right? It's just marketers that they're pissed at.
What? I don't know. I mean, they just want more demand. They don't see the measurement of it. They don't.
Well, I think it comes down to measurement in a lot of cases, like the inability to measure. Even though now we have all these tools to measure, and if you're doing it right, you can really measure how and tell people, show people how well your stuff is working.
I think you're right, and this is the conundrum that I think CMOs and we in marketing face. CEOs are saying, show us results. And at the same time, they're saying, put a banner up on that billboard that costs $1 million a year, even though we know we can't track it, really. And so we're faced with this conundrum. We're over-marketing to consumers who are already sick and tired of us over-marketing to them. We're asking employees to do stuff that they know won't work. And then therefore, as CEOs, we're not happy with our employees because they're doing what we told them to do. So what's the real problem here? Everybody's unhappy. How do we fix this problem of making consumers happy, employees happy, and our bosses happy? And I think the problem really comes down to the org chart and the way that we think about the way our organizations are structured. The org chart, you've all seen different examples of them. They're just boxes and lines, and they show who's above us and who's below us and who's beside us. They essentially act as an organizational model of decision making. The person above you tells you what to do and you do it. I think we need to think differently about the org chart. We need to realize that there's real people in the organization. Now, this is a joke of a cartoon, and it talks about how real people, they have spouses that they work with, and they have affairs with people they work with, and their kids might be on the same baseball team as somebody else that they work with that's 3 layers below them, or they might go to church with a bunch of people. The bottom line is, org charts are filled with real people, with real life, stresses and happy moments, and we often forget that. But we really forget the most important person. The most important person is our customers. Where is the customer reflected in our org charts? I don't think I've ever seen a model where an org chart reflects the customer and the importance of the customer inside our organization. So what would that look like? And I call this the bullseye. I don't know if this analogy works, but basically it's putting the customer at the center of everything that we do. An organization that's focused on answering this question about customer value. And this kind of an organization would answer, I call it WIFTICA. I keep trying, it's not working. I don't know, maybe this video will be, memorable. This live video is going to hashtag WIIFTC. It's not a swear word. Okay. What's in it for the customer? Organizations that ask this question in every different department and silo and hierarchy level are finding these kinds of results. They're making customers happy, they're making their employees happy, and they're showing better results for their boss. So how does this happen? Well, it happens because it's not just the marketing team asking what's in it for the customer. It's not just the sales team trying to sell stuff to the customer. It's not just customer service people servicing the customer. The entire organization, operations and finance and HR, right? So this is where HR comes in. HR is responsible for the engagement and the happiness of everyone. Now, maybe lawyers in the legal department don't care about customers, but I think maybe there are some lawyers out there that even care about what's in it for the customer. So if HR starts to put programs in place and we work with marketing to develop a culture that really puts the customer first, customer centricity, audience centricity, that's how I think we're going to start to see the kinds of results that CEOs are expecting from us. So the interesting thing is when we ask what's in it for the customer, and there are companies that do this, they have high levels of employee engagement. Why is that? Because they realize that in order to deliver value to customers, they have to understand what is important to their employees. If I asked you what you wanted to do and you said, I want to edit some blogs, and I gave you that job, you'd be better at it than if I told you to go put a billboard on the side of Highway 101, right? And that's the point, right? When we ask what's in it for the customer as an organization, we then start trying to figure out ways to engage and activate our employees. And when we have engaged employees, they create happy customers. Happy customers buy more, they stay longer, and they make happy CEOs. So this is how this kind of cycle continues. So that's why HR is the new marketing. We live in an over-marketed world. The people that we trust are people like us, right? I don't want to listen to a TV commercial or an executive or a politician or a media company even. I want to listen to an employee who's just like me. And so if you like cats and cat videos, and I see you post a cat video and I like cat videos too, I want to become friends with you. And that's kind of the point. So share what you know and share what you love is essentially the way to fill, I think, the volume and the quality gap that many organizations face.
We did a dog video on LinkedIn Marketing Solutions, and that is our top viewed video.
That's right.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
My dog, Socks.
There you go. Socks. See?
Yeah.
See?
That's all you need to know.
That's
Yes.
it.
We can
There's
just
your
show's over.
wrap now.
That's right.
That's a dogs and cats.
Hashtag Wiftica.
So hashtag Wiftica. So why did that happen? That happened because potential customers of LinkedIn saw that, who love dogs, and they loved it. Potential employees, people that might want to come work here, saw that and they said, hey, Sean's a dog person, I love dogs too. Potential investors in LinkedIn or Microsoft saw that and said, I want to invest in that company. They love dogs and I love dogs too. When we tap into the passion and expertise of our employees, everybody wins.
So, yeah, how would you describe, if you were to boil this down into a couple sentences, how you activate employees in social media, on the blog, and producing content? How does it work?
I learned the hard way, the one way not to do it. And that's to try to force people. So don't go out there and say, hey, everybody in this department needs to start blogging. What I found is that every organization, no matter what role you're in, has creators. And I always use the example, there are engineers that are really nerdy who love to sit in closets and code all day long. And there is a portion of them that want to get out into the world and share what they know. And they might be a little bit different than you or I, but they want to create, they want to share. Find those creators in your organization. Just ask them. Say, hey, we've got a platform. We've got a platform where you can share your expertise. We want you to share that out with our internal employees. We want to tell the stories of your success. We don't have to promote what you do. We don't have to promote the product or the service of the company that we're in. Just talk about what you know and what you love.
Yeah, we have some stats that kind of back up the power of this concept. Like a typical company, its employees have 10x the sort of social network that the company itself has. And when an employee shares something that the company shared previously, the employee gets 2 times the engagement that the company gets. People want to hear from people, right? Not essentially brands.
Exactly.
That's huge. So when an employee shares something, it on average will get twice the engagement that the brand would get.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I talk to people all the time. They say, oh, my corporate account won't share the blog article that we just wrote. And I tell them, I use the stats from LinkedIn. And Sean, I talk about you and Alex Wren and Jason on, when I give presentations, I talk about the LinkedIn case study, about how you guys, committed to contributing and using the LinkedIn Elevate platform, which I think is an amazing tool. I was telling Andy, it's the best tool that no one knows about. And I know this isn't a product pitch for LinkedIn, but with LinkedIn Elevate, you can find the people inside your organization that want to share at a minimum. And then if you can, find those folks in the organization that want to create and get everyone else to share. And that's how you see the 2x.
Right. It's a great platform for activating people to share the social content that you want. And not just content from your own company, but content that your market would find interesting or useful. It's a great tool, great platform. Okay, so I am going to jump into here. I've got a little bit... I've got 5 points on how you can grow your blog subscribers. We were talking earlier about how this is a kind of a critical metric that's often overlooked. But I think if you can grow your subscribers, it's a clear message that your blog is healthy, that you're reaching the right people, and that you're giving them content that they find useful or entertaining, and hopefully both. So the first thing is all about serving your audience. It's about finding out who your audience is and giving them the content that they really need and want to do their jobs better. So I focus at LinkedIn on our audience is digital marketers. I'm assuming that most of you in the audience here watching today are digital marketers. And we try and give you content that is useful. I mean, it's as simple as that. And the second thing that we do is create useful content. We talk about creating quality content often. And we really focus on a variety of content. We don't want to give people the same thing day after day. We talk about the food groups of blog posts. There's meaty blogs that have a lot of great insight in them. There's vegetable stuff that maybe you don't want to know, but you have to know. And there's also Tabasco, which is like a hot take or a strong opinion. Andy has found that in his research that posts with strong opinions or posts with data, and maybe both together, strong opinion driven by data, work exceptionally well if you're a blogger. So that's the second thing we do, focus on content. Leveraging SEO. Traffic is also it's a KPI that we really should be paying attention to, even if it's not the absolute KPI. Leveraging SEO is important. We focus on a few keywords for us. They're B2B content marketing is a critical one, and we have several others, and we're really trying to find a post or several posts that can rank in the top 10. You want to be on that top page on the search engines. And the fourth thing we do is we implement really demand gen principles like you would do for any other thing you're trying to promote in your company. We put a subscribe button very prominently on the blog. One of the key things we do is we use opportunities like this to talk about the blog and why you should be subscribing. And one of the things that we've done recently is put a pop-up ad on our blog, which has really increased our subscribers on a daily basis. We try to make it not too annoying, but it works incredibly well. In fact, for one of our blogs, it's tripled our daily subscriber rate, getting new subscribers with that pop-up. So I definitely suggest that you use that. And the fifth thing we do is promoting your blog. I just did it a few seconds ago. I'm going to do it again now. You can sign up for the LinkedIn Marketing Solutions blog or the LinkedIn Sales Solutions blog. And both these blogs, we really focus on trying to create useful content for our users. I know I said that a bunch of times, but it's really bears repeating. And we promote it on all our channels. When we post a blog, it's promoted on our Twitter handles, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We promote it everywhere. So in summary, the 5 steps: serve your audience, generate great content at scale, leverage SEO, use demand gen, and promote your blog when you can. So I've got a few questions. We've got some questions coming in from the audience too, but I wanted to return to the quantity versus quality question. How do you determine what's the right frequency for your audience?
Yeah. One of the answers I'd like to give to this question is to look at your business model and your go-to-market strategies. How long is the sales cycle in your industry? If it takes, we do web design, it takes people a month plus to decide who to hire for their website. Look at the buying interval. How often do people use your service? Web design, 3 years, 4 years plus. So if that's the case, to stay top of mind with someone, why would I publish every day? Like, that's just ridiculous. You don't have to do that. So I recommend that people consider tuning the frequency of their content to their sales cycle and their buying interval, because you can stay top of mind with something that really isn't a huge frequency in a lot of cases. Having said that, sustainability and consistency are always a factor, and there are people who just, let's be realistic, and you have to be staffed up for it and have the process and the workflow and the team to do something consistent. So, but I don't think that the numbers are as huge as some people think to just stay top of mind, especially in a B2B context.
All right, Michael, what do you think? This is a topic you've written a lot and thought a lot about.
Yeah, and I've tested it, and I don't disagree with Andy. I think it's different for everybody, and I think everyone should look at the frequency that's right for them. My point of view, just kind of coming out of the gate, is, people are searching for content marketing strategy every single day, so I want them to find me every day.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm selfish that way, but
kind of.
So, but the problem is, how do I scale quality, right? I can't write an article that's really good every single day. So what I've done is I've outsourced that, and I've really looked and curated. I guess I call it author curation. I go out and I find 2 or 3 or 4 other people that are willing to create a quality piece of content once a week or twice a month. And with that, I'm able to fill the sort of the everyday funnel that I'm trying to fill with my blog. And I've, I went out, like I showed the numbers, I went up to 15 posts a week, and I didn't see, a 3x improvement. So I came back down to 8 or 9 or 10 or something like that. So pretty much, every day is my goal, but quality at all costs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in frequency, just from, I think I said it before about the advertising world. Every marketing thing, you want to be in front of your audience as often as you possibly can. I think there's a lot of talk about quality versus quantity, and I think the people who are asking people to scale back are already producing enough content, and maybe they've got their wheel going, and they can probably coast for a while and reduce the level of frequency. I would wager that most bloggers are not producing enough content to really make the impact that they need on their audience. But that brings us to the quality question. It's hard to produce quality, and people are talking about. I think quality is it's interesting. Like, I think it scares a lot of people. Like, that you need to have Martin Scorsese level video or Hemingway kind of
studio.
Blog post.
You gotta have a studio.
Sure.
I'm not making video without a studio.
Yeah.
Exactly, but you shoot videos at your desk, and they're incredibly effective.
Yep. Screencasts, just straightforward stuff.
So what's the sort of minimum threshold of quality that we need to talk about?
Yeah, there are clues everywhere, and it depends. What I would say is to make decisions based on data. Here's a backwards-looking idea for what's working for you, what quality means to your audience based on what they're doing. Go look at analytics. What is it? Behavior, site content, all pages report. Filter to just see your content marketing content or your blog, and just go look at the average time on page. These are the things that people are engaging with.
Right.
Drop your own domain into BuzzSumo. See what people are sharing. Right. There's lots of go look in your ESP, your mail delivery service, right, and see if you look around a little bit, you'll get ideas for what people are really enjoying, what people are engaging with, and that's quality based on their terms, which I think is a great way to make decisions about, how to inform the next evolution of your content strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about quality? How do you think about it?
I mean, I have like I'd be a terrible editor probably, because I have a low bar, but the
good for you.
The bar for me is if it answers a customer question. I tried to activate employees when I was at SAP, and the platform I started there now has thousands of contributors, many of them employees. And I used to say, hey, just 2 rules: don't promote products and services, answer a customer question. Those are the 2 rules. And if it means it's a 6-point bullet list with 300 words and a video to support, that might be good enough. And, data will tell you. First time I saw Andy speak, by the way, the most brilliant thing I heard was look at your top pages report and optimize it for conversion, and look at your top conversion pages report and optimize it for traffic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Done.
Yeah.
Connect. This is Barry Feldman's quote. If your website's the mousetrap, the content's the cheese. Probably the fastest results that anyone can get in content marketing is to find their traffic champions and find their conversion champions and link those things together, right? A simple internal link or call to action can drive people from that massive overproducing traffic magnet straight into that super compelling post that converts 1.5% of visitors into subscribers.
Yeah. Well, I was telling you guys earlier, one of my top pages is 39, gifts for any presentation. And it kind of goes through the different emotions you might want to use if you're trying to strangle your boss or, cajole them or cuddle them. And it's it's maybe 150 words with 39, really pretty funny gifs. And it's actually it's the link on my 401 to redirect page. Like, if you didn't find what you're looking for, go check out this. And it's a guy just standing there with rain falling on him. It's pretty funny. But anyway, the point is it answers a customer question. It serves a need that we all have. Like, how do I make my presentations just a little more funny or a little more human? And it drives a lot of traffic and conversions for me.
Right.
So
I love that answer. I think that it should just be all of our rule. Like, does it answer a question? If it answers a question, it's quality for them because it makes it about them. So I'm going to change my answer to what Michael said.
Okay, what Michael said. Yeah, we had a conversation about in praise of medium quality content. Like something that you can do fast that answers the question. I think that's important. It's like. Marcus Sheridan says that they ask, you answer.
Right.
That's sort of the summary of blog and content marketing.
FAQ content.
But I'm going to argue with my own opinion.
Okay.
But
beautiful.
We do need to show up in Google, and it's sort of the altar we all worship at some level when it comes to the digital age. And you're not going to get there with 39 GIFs that you should enter, put into your next presentation.
No, that one doesn't rank.
2,000 word posts. There needs to be a mix. And like I always say, value, volume, and variety. That is the way to get to the front page of Google, and we need that as well. And Bing, absolutely, absolutely.
So we've got a few questions from the audience here. There's some real great ones. I'm just getting started with blogging. What would be the first 1 or 2 things that they should do to get the blog off the ground? Do you have a thought, Michael or Andy?
My favorite tool right now is answerthepublic.com.
Right.
And you go, it's actually a friend of Steve Rayson's, two guys in the UK who started it, but answerthepublic.com, type in, so for me, I'm a content marketing strategy consultant. I type content marketing strategy into Answer the Public, and it tells me all of the questions that people are asking when they go into Google or Bing in their search engine. So it is, from day one, your editorial strategy based on the questions your customers are asking.
Right.
So the first thing you should do is that. The second thing you do is start answering them.
Yeah, perfect.
I'll give a tip that that Joe Polizzi and Content Marketing Institute always talk about, which is to create your editorial mission statement first, which is going to connect you with that audience. My simple template for that is our blog, social streams, newsletter, everything we publish anywhere, is where audience X gets information Y for benefit Z.
Yeah.
That way you're saying, like you started, digital marketers, find what, the topics, the information, and then the what's in it for me, why do I care, right? Audience X finds information Y for benefit Z. This will make sure it's your true north forever after. The second thing, and you've mentioned this too, it's never too early to optimize your email sign-up box to maximize subscribers.
Right.
And my, again, three Ps, I like your Vs. The 3 Ps for that would be prominence, make it visually prominent, right? Maybe it's not a pop-up, but maybe it's sticky element or it's bright colors. Promise, tell them what they're going to get. Mm-hmm. Please tell people what they're going to get if they subscribe. If it just says email sign up, submit, like that is super lame and no one will subscribe because you're not telling them what they're going to get. So promise something, the topic, maybe the frequency. The third is proof, add some social proof. And even if you're just starting out, I love this question. It's a great question. You've got just a couple of subscribers, get a quote from one of them and use that next to the sign up box. Thanks for this great content, right? Just a little bit of social proof will increase the conversion rate from visitor to subscriber.
Yeah, the way I look at this, I think it is very similar to what you guys are saying. You got to look at the audience first, and then you got to think about what you can deliver to that audience that they're, where you're really good at, and that's where you should focus on. And if you're not really good at some things, bring in outside contributors, because that can really help your blog. Gives you a variety of people contributing, and they also help expand your subscriber list because they have their own networks, expand beyond yours. All right, so there was another one that I think gets back to the heart of this quantity versus quality question, saying if attention spans are so short and workloads are so high, why are the long blog posts so popular, so effective?
We never said that long posts get read every word, right? So search engines need text to understand what the page is about. A search engine is just trying to understand what are the top 10 pages on the internet for this topic. So a page that has more copy, more text, has more opportunity to indicate relevance and is more likely to be a great answer to more questions. So that's why lots of studies show longer content tends to rank higher. So that's one of the reasons. Whether or not people are just scanning it or just reading the first paragraph or just watching the video you put at the top. So that, it's cynical, but people aren't reading everything we're writing anyway, right? And we have to accept that our readers are scanners. Right. But I've never seen a study that showed that short posts perform better. Maybe the GIF roundup, but I think the idea is to be thorough, be complete, be the best answer for any topic. Just keep going, answer, just go in depth, and whenever they're done, they'll bail out, right? It doesn't matter that they're not going to read the whole thing.
I think the attention span thing is a myth, too. I think if something is worth their time, they will spend the time on it. And a longer post usually has more meat to it, and they'll spend time with it. I think.
Well, and there's data to support it, and it's one of the arguments I have with the sort of content shock idea, that attention spans are finite, but as a society, we're actually consuming 10 times more content today than we did 3 years ago online. It's a measurable thing. We can see bandwidth and download rates and pages read. And so the more content that's being created, the more we want, the more we're going to consume. Yes, there's a limit, but we haven't reached it yet.
So another question from the audience here. How can I attract new viewers and subscriptions to my content? What is the first step to take here?
Well, I'll put a spin on something you suggested a second ago, which is to invite contributors, but not necessarily for the full guest post, because it's hard, right? Author curation, to find people that are qualified and will commit. And it's also a trick to writing longer, more in-depth stuff. If you know an expert, I'm writing about content strategy, Michael's a pro at that. Hey, Michael, would you mind sending me a few sentences with your best tip for content strategy? I'm just going to include that in the post. It's going to have his picture, his name, a link to his site, a quote from him. You can just fill your content with contributor quotes the same way a journalist, Sean, you've got a journalism background, the same way a journalist would use a source. So I think that inviting contributors both improves your network, we're here at LinkedIn,
Right.
improves the quality of the piece. You can learn by reading your own blog.
Absolutely.
And it's ego bait.
Yeah.
They're likely to share it. They were part of it.
Yeah.
An ally in creation is an ally in promotion.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, I totally agree with Andy, and it's something that I use as much as I can. And it definitely helps, I think, expand your audience. The subscriber one, I think you got into it, like testing pop-ups, and I mean, it is controversial and can be. I don't pop up ads. I pop up a subscribe box, which is a piece of value.
Right.
And I do. I say join 10,000 of your peers.
Yeah, right.
Get a piece of 10
Absolutely.
formulas for content marketing ROI. So I give them a little carrot and a stick as well. Only after 75 seconds. Never on mobile. Like I try to make it as unobtrusive as possible. But just pop-ups are really effective for subscribers. The other point I would make is having a lead magnet or a tripwire or an ultimate guide. Can really help.
Right.
So a lot of times in the companies I work with, I start with the ultimate guide to,
Yeah.
which interestingly enough is just answering the why, what, how, when, where, and who questions. Split those up into blog posts, drive those blog posts back to the lead magnet, and ask for a subscription along the way.
Yeah, we call it turkey slicing.
Yep.
You get the big piece of content, you carve it up and turn it into blog posts, turn it into tweets, turn it into...
And if you add Tabasco to that turkey, you've got a real
That's
winner.
right.
Delicious.
That's right. So here's a question about this question is about, I've got a ton of subscribers, but I've never emailed them. What's the best platform to reach 30,000 email addresses at once? We use FeedBlitz to handle our subscribers. It's pretty simple and good program. I get WordPress would work, right? I mean, you can set up that so that if you have a blog on WordPress, you can...
Just RSS style, like when it publishes, it's notifying people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I try to stay tool agnostic because there's millions of ways to do it, and everyone kind of has their favorite thing. It's kind of like what kind of car do you like? It just depends. But if this question is from someone who's never emailed 30,000 subscribers, I'm going to start with a tip based on straight off of what Michael's cheat sheet. Whatever the top question you get in your business, whatever people ask the most often during sales or in conversation or in your FAQ or in your site search tool, make that question the subject line of a newsletter.
Okay.
Boom. Fireworks.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah.
It can make a big difference, right?
Right.
That's like there's, turn your top X into Y. It's one of those.
Okay.
I think that there's really two approaches. One is subscribers are subscribing to your content. They're saying, I'm inviting you into my inbox. So you should answer that promise by sending your content. I use a tool that allows automated RSS scheduling of emailing. But on top of that, I send a welcome email, which is automated, and then about 4 or 5 nurturing emails, which are generally like, hey, here's my top posts, and I use that top article as the headline. Here's some top videos that you might want to check out of me speaking at an event. Here's 3 resources that you might be interested in. And then usually I send out the 5th one that says, oh, by the way, I'm a content marketing consultant and a speaker. Maybe you're interested in engaging with me, but only after I send out tons of content that is just purely about them.
Right.
How long is that welcome series email? How many emails do you have in that sequence?
6. Yeah.
6. Oh, man.
What's
Every
the time
2
frame?
weeks.
Okay.
So if you subscribe to Marketing Insider Group today, you would get a welcome email, and then every 2 weeks you'd get here's the top articles, top videos, top slide shares, top resources, and a pitch.
And at the end, are the open rates huge?
Yeah, it's 10 times my daily open rate.
The welcome series email, if you haven't set one of those up, the welcome series email will definitely outperform your normal newsletter. It's one of the first communications you have with that person who converted. They were just a visitor. Now they're a subscriber.
Yeah.
They were a suspect, now a prospect.
And they're obviously interested in what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
They've been to your site. Yeah.
Exactly.
All right. So another question here. This should be a quick one. What's more effective in your experience, a button asking people to subscribe or a line of copy in the post?
The words are the bigger factor. The words are more important than the, buttons or images, links or text. Oh, you mean just a link like in line in the
Yeah,
text?
yeah, in the text. Yeah, the link. Subscribe to the blog.
I've never even tried that. Just like in line,
Yeah.
like in everything's worth testing. I can't say that I know for sure, but it might not be either or.
Right, I would do
Multiple
both.
subscribe opportunities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, on
Always be
every
testing.
blog post,
Yeah.
well, not every blog post do we ask people to subscribe, but often we do inside the post. The button's at the top of the page, and it kind of scrolls down with people. And there's the pop-up subscription button comes up 45 seconds. We do, and we do them all, and they all work. Don't be afraid to promote your blog.
No.
So how do you go about ensuring that your brand comes through in a blog post? Do you guys think about voice when you're writing a post, or do you just sort of do it in your own voice? I mean, you guys are sort of the faces of your respective companies.
I'll go back to what Andy said with the importance of a mission statement. For me, what I think about Marketing Insider Group isn't important. What I'm trying to do for the audience that I'm serving, that's what's important. So, the mission statement for me is to help my audience create content that converts and presentations that connect. I try to make sure all of my content does that. I don't really call that a brand statement. It's more of a content mission. If I fulfill that content mission, then for me, that's going to help my company and brand awareness, whatever that is, in the process. But yeah, I don't worry about. Yeah, sure. I have a tone. I don't over edit my contributors to comply to mine.
Yeah, that was my next
I want them to
question,
be
yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, and it's the same with if you've got a big company, you've got a lot of employees out there sharing on all the social platforms. You can't really control all of them. You have to let them speak in their own voice, I think.
I mean, I don't want to hog this question, but I worked with a company whose brand tone of voice was to never be negative. But if you think about Tabasco, you can't ever be controversial if you're never negative.
Right.
And a lot of customer questions that company was getting were not negative necessarily, but they were about the concerns of security and safety of a certain kind of technology. You have to answer that question, but the brand team was worried about that. So, my recommendation is to sit down with the brand team and let them know that you have to be free to answer customer questions, irrespective of the brand tone of voice. It's a point of view from a person with expertise. Let them share what they know.
Okay.
And being a person, just be a person. Just write from the first person. Some of my top performing subject lines have been written in the first person. I think that there's a big benefit to using the face of the author in the template design of the blog, putting the blogger's name right there. If the content isn't time-based or ephemeral or news, I actually recommend removing the date from the blog template, which is a different conversation and kind of controversial.
We disagree on that one.
Yeah.
But I love your point of view.
We could get, it's a fun topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, be human, be personal, right? You'll see the social sharing benefit right away. Use faces, use names. I'm not sure that I worry so much about the voice of the brand as much as letting the author and their voice come through a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, it goes back to the fact that, if a brand shares something, it's a 1x. If a person from the company shares, it's a 2x. I think having unique voices, idiosyncratic voices is something to be encouraged. That's the kind of stuff that stands out, really. So, all right, I got a question. Like, what's your favorite blog post of all time? Or maybe the most impactful or...
Well, I once wrote a blog post that was a poem about SEO. Least popular blog post I've ever written. It ranks for SEO poetry. You could probably find it. It's a fun question, right? We should all, it'd be a good roundup. It's like, what's the best thing? What's your favorite thing you wrote that no one read?
I did 10 haikus on marketing. That it wasn't the worst ever, but it was.
We should put this together and maybe put like a marketing poetry book together.
Yeah. Collection of terrible posts that we love.
Yeah. Faber and Faber.
Yeah. Favorite post? I have no idea. I mean, one of the first things I ever wrote, the first post I wrote on my blog was, "Why am I in marketing?" And I think Doug Kessler, for those of you who know Doug, a great guy, and he's the only person I think that's read it, and he commented on it. But it was, I think it's, especially if you're just starting out, I think it's important to try to identify and publicly explain why we do what we do. And for me, that post was sort of like, it was sort of like Alcoholics Anonymous, like, hi, my name is Michael and I'm in marketing.
Right. Yeah.
And this is what I'm going to try to do here. I may or may not succeed. So yeah, it's the same thing. My favorite post I've written, but no one's ever seen it.
All right. Well, somebody asked about, just a question for me here. How do we spell our dog's name? And it's Sox, S-O-X.
Nice.
But they say you and Andy must love socks.
Yeah. Is it White Sox? Because you're
White Sox,
White Sox?
yeah.
There
we got her in 2005 when the Sox were.
There you go.
Series.
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right, we're getting near the end here, the top of the hour. I'm sad because this was a lot of fun.
This was fun.
Yeah.
I really thank you guys for taking the time to do this. I think it was very valuable. Trying to get useful content. That's what we're all about here. So subscribe to the blog. I'll say it again. And that's it for Live with Marketers for today. And we'll have another episode coming up very soon. So watch for it in your in-mail box or on LinkedIn or Twitter. We'll see you again soon. Thank you.
All right.